I saw a video on YouTube about airplane boarding. It's the most boring topic in the world, but the guy, it's a work of art. He's like talking about all the different ways airplane boarding can go, like the quickest way to board an airplane. And he's got like 8-bit Nintendo graphics and like, it's just fun. There's a lot of humor in it. He's talking about like the Grim Reaper stealing our minutes away using like good hyperbole and humor. And it's just really great. And he pointed out something interesting, which is the reason that boarding takes so long, boarding an airplane. You would think that it's because like if somebody sits down by the aisle and then somebody else has to sit by the window, they have to get out into the aisle and let the other person in. And that's what's slowing the boarding. But no, it's people putting in their bags and the overhead is what slows down. So everybody's standing in line getting on the airplane. The line is like totally halted every time a person has to throw a bag up into the overhead.
Like someone's too short and they can't, and they're like struggling, getting beaten up by their bag.
And so I was thinking, well, technology should be able to fix this. So my first idea, like a airplane boarding speed up idea. Basically, you don't put your bag in the overhead. You just sit down and you put your bag in your lap. And then you don't have an aisle or a window assigned. If you're there first, you have to sit by the window. Like you have a row assigned. So that way you're not forcing people to get up and move out of the way when they've got that bag on their lap. So you just fill up the plane that way. Nobody has to wait for anybody to put their bag in on top. Nobody has to wait for anybody to jostle around to get to the window or whatever. And then you have like a robot eventually would come down, straight down, lift your bag up, put it up there. So
what if it like snatches someone's wig? When it's like flying, gets too low, takes
someone's wig?
I don't know. It's flying right by their heads.
Well, so and then
crotch.
What you could do is like, well, yeah, I mean that's a problem that I didn't factor in my idea.
Or like hits him in the face.
So everyone just has.
I mean, it could like have a sensor or something, but you could like put your bag when you're in the airport. You could put it. They could have like 4 different sizes of cases that you put your bag in to make it easier for the robot to lift it up. And then once it's up there, it can like jostle it around where it needs to go. It doesn't have to. The robots can put it in anywhere sort of nearby, and then you can hit like a button to have it bring you your bag when you need it later, like mid-flight. And also, if you do it that way, it can keep track of how much space, as people are boarding, there's an app that's keeping track of how much space is already occupied in the overhead space as a whole. And so if it's running out of space or it ran out of space, it can let people know before they even make it to the airplane when they're waiting in line to get boarded. Okay, this has to be checked because there's no more room in the overhead bins. So that was my first idea related to airplane boarding. And then I thought, couldn't you just create like a mini airplane cockpit in the airport? So as you walk into the airport, you sit down in your actual seat, and then the whole front of the plane comes off, and the actual flying part of the plane can just pick it up with everybody already in it, put it on to the front of the airplane, and then go. That way,
like a Lego airplane?
Yeah, that way people are getting in. Instead of having like a waiting area in the airport, you would just get into the actual cockpit that will eventually get moved, plopped onto the plane. And that way people are...
Get to the cabin.
Yeah.
Right? All right.
The top half of the plane just pops off. You can just take the whole chunk with the people already in it and plop it on there. And because people are arriving in the airport over a period of an hour, they don't have to worry about all trying to jumble into that area at once.
Yeah, I like your first idea. Like, because I was scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
They say, oh, the whole top of this thing comes off.
And then I thought, you wouldn't even need to have it attached to the plane, because as the plane flies, the wind resistance is holding it back. So you could have like a back that it leans against and the wind pushes it against. And so as it's flying, the wind is holding it to keep it from sliding off the front.
Weather patterns are tricky.
And then like after you landed, if you slammed on the brakes, the front of it would just come careening off and land onto the ground. And then I thought, maybe you do need to latch it on there. But then I thought, well, what if you made it like a bus? So the plane, when it lands, the top part with the people in it comes shooting off the front, when it slams on its brakes, but it's got wheels on it. So now it's a bus, and it doesn't even come to a complete stop. It just keeps going, goes off the highway off-ramp, and just goes into town.
I feel like this is like a Three Stooges type of design.
Transformers.
Yeah.
Then I thought, well, you wouldn't need an airport then. So you could just board a bus like downtown somewhere.
Oof, that's dangerous.
And then the bus would just take people to the runway and plop itself onto the front of the plane, and it would take off.
With how little I trust Greyhound or Megabus or any of those, I'm not.
And then that
got
same
any.
bus, you could it could pop onto like a subway car. It could pop onto a boat. It could pop onto all sorts of things like automatically and take you where
Cabin.
you need to go. And if you didn't have an airport, you could just have random runways all over the place, convenient to where you need to be. I don't believe in lines. Lines are like a failure of human imagination. Like waiting in line to go to a concert, or waiting in line at the airport security, and then waiting in line again to board the airport, and then waiting in line in the airplane as the airplanes are in line. All of that is wasted human time. And it's only there because of a failure of human imagination. If we could do my system, just have runways all over the place with like buses that pop onto the front of airplanes, you would eliminate all of those lines basically.
But then there would be a line to get onto the bus.
Right.
Yeah, well, I guess you do have to like wait for people to get to one spot, like all on a bus. So I've eliminated two of the 3 line waiting steps. And then, yeah, the other thing is, well, it could be a bus, or it could be like, you know how Elon Musk's tunnels, they have these like things that mount to the wheels of the car. You could like have your individual car or motorcycle like hook on this platform, and you could just sit on that. You wouldn't even have to get on a bus per se.
Right.
You could just drive onto a platform, and it would lock. So you'd be in your car on an airplane. Might be more
So like
expensive.
a ferry in the air.
A sky ferry.
But it would just be a way to
scary.
like,
Ferry.
A scary is
like a
what it would be called.
modular human transportation system, like plop a bus onto the body of an airplane, have little runways everywhere. Now the bus is plopped onto a ferry. And then I saw a documentary on Amazon. It was about the highway system and like how bridges are not getting repaired and everything, and how our generation basically failed to maintain or improve on infrastructure. And my thought is, instead of creating more infrastructure, because I don't think government is competent enough to even maintain existing architecture like pipes and roads and things, I think we should, we don't need a national highway. We don't need all the roads in the continental U.S. to connect to each other. It can be like Alaska, where there's like Juneau, Alaska, where the capital isn't connected by road to the rest of Alaska in the United States. You have to take a flight or a ferry to get there. We don't need to pay $20 million to build 10 bridges across every rinky-dink river in the U.S. With like all these new types of ideas, like my one runway. You could have like one runway to this town and just no roads to this town. And then you could have like drones to deliver food there, like either individual Amazon packages or like entire pallets of goods. So there's these new technologies to get shit everywhere. That way we don't have to have giant infrastructure everywhere. So my silly airplane idea sort of evolved into
City
diversifying
design.
the grid, like using these futuristic technologies. That way we don't have to pay like tens or hundreds of billions of dollars a year to maintain road systems and rebuild bridges in the middle of nowhere where people don't even live anymore. Like, we don't need the Mackinac Bridge. We don't need 96. We can get to Lansing through 94 and 275. Like, you can get there through the existing highway system if there was no 96. Like, we could minimize the amount of infrastructure, especially if there's like self-driving semis. It doesn't matter if it's farther along the road route if they're not paying somebody hourly to drive farther. So that's basically my idea.
I'm Mike Jeter.
And I'm Nazdeen Mia.
I'm Tom Woma. This is Creativity Wasted. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and give a review or rating on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or wherever you got it. I have a website, creativitywasted.com, and I also started a Patreon. So if you love the show, consider donating to Patreon. Thanks for listening.
You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.